Wow.
Good evening.
We're back again. Back again. So,
the Oscars, it keeps going.
Yeah, that's kind of a long applause, but thank you guys.
Long applause.
This is look at us. We got our first guest. Can you believe it? We've been doing this podcast for maybe around.
Guest.
Oh yeah, second guest. Yeah.
Oh, you should have just played that off, man. I was so like,
I'm
sorry.
Stefan.
Our first British guest. There we go. No, Stephen Miller's British too.
Oh, come on.
Is he? I thought. I don't know why I thought he was Australian. Damn.
No, he's British but lives in America. That doesn't count. That's
Yeah. Well, I should say our first guest of 2025. Jahan and I we've been soloing it this year.
Well, yeah. I hope I don't bring the quality down at all, but I'm honored to be the second guest. First British-based guest. We'll go for that.
Very
Yay.
True. I think he lived somewhere in the Northwest, like Oregon or Washington or something like that.
But we've got the new kid in the arena.
Yep.
Michael Button.
Yeah, man, your videos are crushing, dude. Very first time, fun story, the very first time I heard about Michael Button was the night after, as I was driving home from JRE. I had just done the Joe Rogan podcast, and I forget, he and I were having a conversation about like seafaring cultures. I think maybe we talked about Easter Island, and I was talking to him about somewhere during the podcast, I was talking to him about how the people of Rapa Nui, in their early mythology, they don't say that they found Easter Island. And Johanna, you probably remember this. They say that they deliberately chose to go to Easter Island. And so I was talking about how, who knows how far back this knowledge of seafaring and navigating our oceans really goes. And then I think we wrapped up at like 5 p.m. and it was probably like, I don't know, it must have been like midnight or something. And then he texted me a link to your channel. And then he said, I found this pretty interesting. It's something that we were talking about. And I watched the video and I had never seen your channel before. And I was like, oh yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then I kept seeing Michael Button and I kept seeing Michael Button. And then, so anyways, yeah, man, you've just exploded. So I thought that was a fun story. I don't know if I'd share that with you, but that was the first time I heard about you.
Well, thanks, Luke. I mean, I'm sorry that you have to keep seeing my face everywhere. No, apologies for that. But yeah, I mean, it's been a wild journey. I think I started basically exactly a year ago from today on the YouTube.
Wow.
So it's been a bit of a mad one. But yeah, it's been fun. Excited to meet all these great people, including yourselves, and talk about the stuff that I'm interested in. And yeah, it's been great.
So I've got another.
Oh, go on.
Well, I was going to say really quickly. I've got another. I have a fun fact, real quick.
Oh, go on.
Hannah, you know how you and I, our birthdays are 2 days apart?
Yes.
Me and Michael's birthdays are 2 days apart in the other direction.
Sandwiched in.
Babies, yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
And surely your kid's birthday must be around the same.
And then
time,
my kid's birthday is August 11th. Is that close?
That's so weird.
Oh, that's crazy.
So that means, not to be weird, but that means all of our parents got down.
Why would you
around the same time?
Yeah, they were. What would that? Yeah. Post Thanksgiving, they were getting, starting to get cozy, getting cold outside. The last thing, I was just talking to my parents the other day. This is getting way too personal, but the last thing I remember in my childhood bedroom was, so I grew up in the same house until I moved out when I was 21. When I moved out when I was 21. And I was moving everything out of my bedroom. And so this is interesting. So in the American South, it can be kind of similar in some ways to like England. Like the homes are very old. People live in the houses for forever. It's kind of the tradition, right? So what would happen, and I don't know if this is the same with you guys, but as the family grows, the bedrooms kind of switch around, the houses get remodeled. So you may be born in one bedroom, but 2 decades later, you're living in a different one. So anyways, I'm packing up everything out of my parents' bedroom, and I'm like in the closet putting things together, and out of the corner of my eye, I hear my mom. She's like, "They grow up so fast, you know. He was conceived in this room, and now he's moving out." And that's the very last thing I ever heard in my parents' bedroom. I know we're getting personal here. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, and then you just smack your head against the wall.
Yeah, and then I lean out of the closet, and they didn't know that I was there, and I was like, yeah, that's a little embarrassing for you guys.
TMI, Mom. TMI.
So, anyways, Johanna, you were gonna say something a couple minutes ago.
I've forgotten now. I've totally got baby brain. I'm really gonna enjoy talking to you guys tonight because I'm so out of the loop. I've just spent 5 weeks in babyland, so I don't know like what's new in the ancient world. I haven't been following. I'm very excited to get the lowdown on what's going on or what hasn't been going on.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I wanted to, well, I was fascinated to talk with you about, Michael, is your experience in school, like how you, what made you want to study ancient history in college? Like for me, it was, I had always loved ancient history, but I didn't really know how it was possible to pursue a career. And I didn't want to do archaeology because being an archaeologist is kind of like being an actor. Like I can't just go work on any archaeological site I want to. You kind of have to play politics, and you hope that you get the job that you want, but you might not. And it's a rough life. And so I didn't see a way I could have a successful career pursuing ancient history, but I was kind of forced into it because I hated my marketing degree so much. And I was going to flunk out of college if I didn't change my major. And so I was like, the only way I'm going to make it through all these classes is if I do something I love. And so you having a similar background and taking a similar path, I'm actually just really interested in your experience in school as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been interested in history. History ever since I was a little kid has always fascinated me, and not just like the ancient stuff, but I love history, all history, like recorded history, right up to like 20th century. I'm fascinated by history and have been like ever since I was a kid. So then it got to this point of turning 18 and thinking about what to do with my life and to go to university and not go to university. And eventually, I settled on doing history, and I decided to do the ancient stuff because mainly I found that to be where the most mystery was, and I wasn't quite clued up yet on the kind of alternative narrative or different points of view that people like us talk about and other people talk about and is out there on the internet. But I was just fascinated by the kind of question of the origins of civilization and that kind of thing. So I decided to not take normal history and to kind of go back to the oldest stuff possible and take ancient history. And yeah, it was a good course. Like, a lot of people seem to think that I have some vendetta against my course and I don't agree with the stuff I learned on my course. Like, that's not true. Like, I have big respect for everything I learned on my course and all the people I met on my course and my professors and all that kind of thing. And I don't dispute any of what was taught on my course in terms of the kind of specifics or any of the sites we were taught about, or basically anything that was said. I have no problem with it whatsoever. It was more on the kind of higher level idea regarding the timeline of civilization and the wider timeline of human history and the big question regarding prehistory and what could have possibly been going on in the times leading up to the birth of civilization that kind of put me on this journey that I'm on now, because my course was ancient history. So that's basically recorded history. So that starts with, the invention of writing, societies such as ancient Sumer, ancient Egypt, stuff like that. So it was kind of like, I started from the point and I was just like, I want to go one step back, like earlier than this, but that wasn't quite how the course worked. And I didn't really know that going in, but that was fine. It was interesting. And I have a lot of gratitude for everything I learned and, all the people I met there. But yeah, it was kind of during that period of study that I started to become a bit disillusioned with as I say, the kind of higher level, wider approach that we take to history in our past, and kind of started reading about these different points of view that I hadn't really been aware of beforehand. And that was what first planted the seed in my mind that eventually, however many years later it is, I'm not quite sure, but it's at least like 4 years after I left university now, I eventually started the YouTube stuff because I wasn't really happy with the explanation regarding the birth of civilization, how old civilization could be, and the wider question of like human intelligence and the story of human history way back to the very beginning. So that's kind of where it all began. But yeah, it's been a while since then. But yeah, that's who I am.
Man, I totally feel where you come from, and I felt largely the same way in college. I didn't really have any disputes with what they were teaching because for me, I did 2 years of ancient history, and it essentially began with, like what you said, the birth of writing, and maybe the farthest back we went was about 3100 BC, South Egypt. There, up in the mountains, there are some carvings up in the mountains that depict Scorpion King, which they think is Dynasty 0, and that's probably the very farthest back we went.
It's also The Rock.
I'm sorry.
The Scorpion King is also played by The Rock.
Yeah. That movie, I watched that movie last year, and I was surprised that it had absolutely nothing to do with Egypt. And it's like that's what the name Scorpion King comes from, Egypt. And they had a little documentary that released with the movie about the Scorpion King, and it was about the Egyptian. Anyways, I can go on a rant about that. Yeah, there was absolutely, I should say, and then it goes from there through ancient Egypt, through Mesopotamia, all the way down to ancient Greece and Rome. And then I had to do some stuff on the Middle Ages. But, the idea of like Göbekli Tepe and the other prehistoric sites in Turkey weren't even mentioned. It wasn't a part of my curriculum. My curriculum had, and I guess, technically we call that prehistory, but I feel like the lines of prehistory and civilization or ancient history are starting to become blurred, because there's very clearly a pattern from Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe and the tepes that are even older down through, like 8000 BC connecting to Mesopotamia. There's very clearly a little web there, and of people who are becoming sedentary. And anyways, it's just, yeah, I agree with you that I felt like so my degree is cultural anthropology, focus on Mesoamerica or the pre-Columbian Americas, but I definitely studied ancient history. And yeah, I felt like it was, I don't know if shallow is the right word, but it certainly felt shallow in some ways. And the vast majority of what I know today, like you, came after college. And my viewpoint of that is kind of like, maybe college just gave me the mindset, or it gave me the training wheels to effectively study these things, and you continue on. But anyways, yeah, I 100% reciprocate your feelings about school.
Yeah, to be fair, it definitely gave us like a good kind of critical thinking skill set to like be able to do the stuff we do now and think about history in a kind of logical way and bring evidence together and construct arguments. Like, it was 100% helpful and also interesting in many respects in what we actually learned. But yeah, some problems in my view with the kind of traditional view in history. And as you said, like this kind of hard line of when civilization began, I think that's one of my biggest gripes, because as you say, that you could kind of trace a connection from the kind of cultures of Anatolia and like Göbekli Tepe, the Tashtapela culture, whatever you want to call it. And the fact that we just kind of have this hard cutoff around, 3000, 4000 BC, where we're like, that is where civilization begins. Everything before that is prehistory. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's a much more complex kind of web of cultures and progress than that. And that's possibly one of my biggest gripes with the mainstream kind of perception of history, is the fact that we have this hard line, which is basically the invention of writing, and we say everything before that is prehistory for fucking 300,000 years, and everything after that is civilization. I don't really subscribe to that.
Yeah, Johanna, were you about to say something?
I was saying that my degree, I didn't do a history degree. I did costume making for film and theater. But within that, we did do a whole like semester term on history of fashion. And so and starting at like 40,000 BC all the way through time. And so my biggest takeaway from that degree is that my party trick is I can like look at something historical and I can date it based on like what people are wearing.
Oh, that's super cool.
But it's also really annoying when you're watching things. So I'm watching a movie and it's supposed to be like historically accurate, and I'm like, the tailoring's not right on that 1872 jacket. But I'm realizing now as well, like fundamentally they got a lot of stuff wrong, because they were like, so the first humans wore clothes around 40,000 BC, and like now we know that there were humans, Homo sapiens like us, from 300,000 years ago. So I'm like, well, I don't think we were naked for 260,000 years. There's definitely, it's that we've only found needles that go back that far for like sewing clothes. So, but we definitely were wearing stuff. If we were.
Right. It is a strange thought. And Michael, I'm sure you spent a lot of time thinking about this. It really is a strange thought that, somewhere between 200 and 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens are walking around. I don't know how many there are in, Eastern Africa, wandering around the Serengeti, or maybe they've even expanded further beyond by that time. But it is fascinating that people with the brain power that we have today, and that kind of like natural curiosity and the ability to solve problems and invent things, were wandering around the world 200,000 years ago, and how little we know about them. And at the same time, how little is officially attributed to them, how little credit they're given. How much time do you spend kind of thinking about that? I'm sure it's a lot.
All the time. That's what that's like my whole thing. But I mean, that's like basically one of the biggest like things that made me think, how can this be right? Because it was during my degree that we discovered these, well, not we, but archaeologists discovered these remains in Morocco. And one thing about them being found in Morocco and dated to over 300,000 years is Morocco isn't, Southeast Africa. Morocco's North Africa. So the fact that they're in Morocco means that humans had already spread out over at least all of Africa by 300,000 years ago, modern Homo sapiens. And it just never made sense in my brain that we could have been around for that sheer incredible length of time. And then nothing really happened until, I guess you could say, the Neolithic Revolution, like 10,000 years ago. And then when you look at how much has happened in those 10,000 years since the Neolithic Revolution, that kind of shows how quickly we can achieve things, in such a relatively short stretch of time. So when you see that there's only 10,000 years since the Neolithic and how much has gone on in that tiny kind of little slither of time, and then you look at the whole 300,000 years, and it's likely longer than 300,000 years, because what are the chances we found the first ever human remains that ever exactly. It's almost certainly older than 300,000 years. We just haven't found them yet. And I mean, there's some like papers that suggest, we split our last common ancestor with Neanderthals was like 800,000 years ago, and that's when our lineage split. So you could argue that, whatever became Homo sapiens has been a distinct kind of branch of humanity for 800,000 years. And once you start getting up to those timescales, it's just ridiculous to me. I mean, obviously they may not have been the same as us 800,000 years ago, but they looks like they were 300,000 years ago. And in my brain, that's just such an incredible length of time that it just doesn't make sense that nothing really happened until the Neolithic Revolution. I mean, obviously some progress was made in the kind of conventional view, but not really, to be honest. They kind of say that nothing really happened. We kind of walked around as hunter-gatherers. We lived in caves until someone invented farming 10,000 years ago.
But there's a phenomenon, I think it's in Africa or South Africa, where they found preserved in like this clay mud, they found a wooden structure that is, I think, 450,000 years old, and it is built. It is a built wooden structure. So it predates humans. So either pre-humans were building structures out of wood because they found this wooden structure that's been like preserved in the clay. Otherwise the wood would have just been gone. But it had like joints. There was like woodworked joints, and there was like a foundational base, and I think like another level to this structure. And so, yeah, you've either got 2 points there. Either humans are older than 300,000 years and they were making stuff, or pre-humans were building stuff.
Yeah, that's the Colombo structure. It's 476,000 years old, and it's literally, I mean, it's engineering, it's structural engineering. And as you say, that's either suggests that our species is, you know, almost 500,000 years old, or whoever came before us. They attribute it to Homo heidelbergensis, which is like the one before us. But so that either suggests that we've been around for 500,000 years, or, you know, the ones before us were intelligent enough to plan, to kind of engineer a structure. And it also kind of hints at maybe we didn't live in a nomadic lifestyle, because if you're building structures, maybe it's a hut, you know, maybe people are settling down, maybe people are living in permanent communities almost 500,000 years ago, which is just so opposed to this view that no one settled down until 10,000 years ago. That it's just, I mean, I think it's a crazy find. I talk about that. I'm always waffling on about that one. So
it makes sense, because I don't know if humans are like, humans never change and humans are the same 100,000 years ago to today. People, you know, if you find somewhere nice, you're like, I like it here. I think we should live here. Like it's not a wild thought that people go, I don't like it over there. I like living here. We've got everything we need.
In studying ancient history and more studying colonial history, I totally agree that human beings, you know, the situations and the nuances of how groups of people form and how they interact with other groups, those are always somewhat different, but the main core principles stay the same. And the things that we like stay the same. You know, something that I see in every single civilization, things that people love to do is to relax, party, and have sex. We all like the same things, right? And you see the same problems in civilizations from, you know, right now in the US, the UK, everywhere else in the world. I can see those same issues in ancient Rome and ancient Greece, and even all the way back in the Old Kingdom in ancient Egypt. They all have some of the same issues. And so it's interesting to remember that, and you're thinking about trying to get into the minds of people who lived over 100,000 years ago and realizing that they are really not that much different than us. Their makeup is the same, and the things that give them a rush and the things that they like and the things that they enjoy and dislike would be exactly the same. You know, they would appreciate living in a beautiful place just as much as we would today. So I find that very interesting.
Do you think they had the same arguments in relationships like 100,000 years ago, being like, you just take me for granted, Bob?
Oh,
and like,
yeah. they had to have, right?
You looked at her.
Like, you know, one thing I was talking to my wife the other day about was, one thing I think about is in civilizations that like weren't ancient. You know, ancient Rome is kind of similar to the modern West today. Like they had fast food, they had places, parks you could go around and walk. But think about Stone Age people, you know, early Stone Age people living in their quote unquote primitive lives. You know, when my wife and I want to kind of get out, we hop in the car, we go get like a Dr. Pepper at McDonald's and drive around and talk for a little bit just to kind of get out. What did people do 100,000 years ago? They had to have those little things that they enjoyed, right? And I find that very interesting. And to your point,
they got high.
Wait, so I'm sorry, say it again.
I think they got high.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's how it probably like.
I'm sure. But to your point, Michael, what you were saying about people being sedentary, you know, call it over 100,000 years ago. Well, I don't think that it's a crazy thought. And I don't, you know, obviously this isn't my realm of expertise, but I'd love to see what you think. In the pre-Columbian Americas, they had animal farms. Like they would corral turkeys and other animals into these pens. Like even in Peru, they would build these huge llama pens, and they would basically farm the llamas and then use them for, you know, use their bones as tools. They would, you know, take the alpaca fur and the hair to make clothing, and then they would eat the meat. And so while at sometimes they were not agricultural, they do have farms of animals, you know, so you don't have to just, one of the arguments is you need agriculture to be sedentary, but you can also have animal farms.
Yeah, I mean, I've never understood why it's seen as so outrageous that people might have been sedentary, before the Neolithic
Yeah.
Revolution. I
It
just
doesn't
don't
have to
understand.
be all of them.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
humans are so adaptable. Like, clearly, some humans were hunter gatherers. Like, there's lots of evidence of that. But that doesn't mean that humans were exclusively hunter gatherers for our entire history, because human beings are ever changing, ever adaptable to the environment around them. And it makes perfect sense just based on like who we are as an animal, that we would settle down. Like, we would find a good spot, as Johanna was saying, and we'd settle down, build a community, build structures, and live in a permanent place. I don't understand why that's seen as like an outrageous point of view, but it kind of is. Some of the backlash I get seems to suggest that people aren't happy with that kind of perspective being put forward. I don't quite understand that.
Yeah, it's silly, man. What I've learned is that like nobody is, you're never gonna. You just have to kind of go about your business and study the things that you're interested in, and present your topics as honestly as you can. And not everybody's gonna like them. Another thing that could be possible is clearly these ancient people are going to be living next to rivers, right? You need the natural fresh water.
Water source,
Well,
yeah.
there's also fish in the rivers, and you can easily make traps where you can catch, hundreds, thousands of pounds of fish to feed everybody in your village. And I don't know if you're going to find archaeological evidence of that. So you have all of these different ways that, ingenious people in this early primordial period can find cheat codes in life, right? Hundreds of thousands of years before the majority of humans will. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you that the idea that humans couldn't have been sedentary hundreds of thousands of years ago is silly, because I would be willing to bet that there definitely were civilizations that were, and maybe they were far ahead of everybody else. Maybe it was rare, but or maybe it wasn't rare. I don't know, but yeah, I find this realm very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think what a lot of sorry, Johanna. I think
No,
what
no.
a lot of people have like problem with is we've created such a kind of narrow definition for what a civilization is, and we've built this whole kind of idea of civilization around effectively Mesopotamia. And if something doesn't, I mean, Göbekli Tepe and the Tashtapela culture is a great example of this, because I mean, it's clearly a very sophisticated culture that built like massive megalithic architecture. There's like shared symbolism between the sites. They're clearly all connected. Like, it's extremely impressive, very large. But people refuse to call it a civilization because it doesn't match the exact definition of what we've decided a civilization is, which is effectively based on the Mesopotamia model. But that's just such a narrow way of looking at history, because why should every single human culture that ever flourished have to exactly fit the kind of idea of Mesopotamia? That doesn't make sense to me. And I think that goes back beyond Göbekli Tepe, way back deeper into time, because a kind of a culture, a sophisticated human culture, which is often the kind of phrasing I use just to not piss people off, but I basically mean civilization when I say that. But a sophisticated human culture deep in prehistory doesn't have to have like massive cities and record keeping and agricultural surplus. It could be sophisticated in so many different ways based on the environment that they lived in and the environment they found themselves in and the challenges that they faced as a society. And I don't understand why, if it doesn't match this exact kind of checklist of things, if we don't tick off every single thing that happened in Mesopotamia, then it doesn't count as a civilization. I don't get it. I don't like it.
You know what? I'm sorry, Johanna, you go ahead.
No, there was just to add on that, because I forget the name, but there is a city settlement that they have in Turkey, like southern Turkey near the Tepes, which is like dated to around 8,000 BC.
Çatalhöyük, I think it's called. Is that right?
Yes, that's yeah. I don't want to take a stab at pronouncing it, but I went there, and it's got like brand new a visitor center and a brand new museum and all the stuff they're digging up there. It's insane, and you can walk around the ruins of it, and it's literally a town. There are buildings. They had 2-story buildings. They have like replicas of the buildings that you can go in and out of, and some of it is honestly nicer than like the places I stayed at uni. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is nice. And I'm like, this doesn't count as a civilization. They have like an area of the museum which is like all of the tools, all of the jewelry, all of the artwork, they have like a cooking kitchen thing, and they have videos about like the foods that they found. And I'm like, this for me, and they were like, "Oh, but it doesn't qualify as a civilization because again, this is thousands of years before Mesopotamia." So I'm like, but yeah, in my mind, I'm like, okay, we'll call it a culture, but I'm like, that seems pretty civilized to me. I mean, they were like have neighbors and yeah.
One of the things, now this is a sort of a loose offhand comparison, although you might find it interesting. I'm sure you've heard of Mycenaean civilization before. You know, Bronze Age Greece,
Oh yeah.
contemporary with the Minoans. So the Minoans they had a script, linear A and B, that they think that were like ledgers used for different supplies and resources and things like that. But I believe that the Mycenaeans were illiterate, but they constructed, they have this kind of like a citadel. I guess it's kind of like a castle, I guess, in form. It looks similar to Göbekli Tepe. But this is a civilization that exists that's younger than Mesopotamia, but also illiterate. And just offhand, I see some similarities to these early Anatolian cultures, but yet we call the Mycenaeans a civilization because we know a lot about them. And, we know all of their contemporaries, and they don't exist in this long, mythical time, but they're also illiterate. And so what I see is that's one of the things that's used to essentially disqualify these Tash Teplar cultures, is because they're illiterate. But there were so many cultures even during the height of the Bronze Age, which, keep in mind, is like it ends in 1100 BC. That's not that long ago, or it's not that deep into ancient times. And so cultures like that, I could see you diving into them and making some comparisons at how we kind of have a double standard for anything that's older than Mesopotamia.
Yeah, it's purely based on the date, because if Göbekli Tepe, Tash Tepela was dated to like 1000 BC, no one would have any problem whatsoever calling it a civilization. It's just because it's so much older that it seems to be a big issue. And then, I mean, even, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think the Inca had a written script. Is that correct?
No.
Exactly.
Well,
so they had some kind of like record keeping, to be fair. They did, but
they had that knot, the Kipu system. It was like knots, but that's never been deciphered. We don't really understand it. But yes, they do not have a written language. And I don't think any of the Peruvian civilizations that I study ever did, and yet all of those are civilizations.
Exactly. So it's purely based on date. Like the checklist doesn't even match up for a lot of the kind of civilizations we accept as civilizations. It's just the ones that are older that we don't accept as civilization, and we say it's because of this checklist, but really it's just because they're before 3000 BC or whatever.
Maybe you didn't need, I think of it like this, like maybe writing stuff down, we see that as like the epitome of like intelligence, and we're like, we can write down symbols and understand them. But what if it's the flipped version of that? And it's like, when you get servers or waiters and they have to write everything down, but then there's occasional server that's like, and you're like, don't you want to write it down? They're like, no, got it. And then you're really impressed. And I was like, what if we didn't need to write things down because we had a capacity to share knowledge in a different, or retain knowledge in a different way.
Yeah.
And actually writing things down is actually the bit of a like way to do it. And it's like the second level of intelligence, and the top level of intelligence you're able to free flow send people stuff. I don't know. So I'm open to the idea that we've got it the wrong way round a little bit, and that there are societies before that were able to share knowledge, retain knowledge, and not have to write it down. Like, writing it down is like hold on, I'll forget it if I don't, kind of thing.
Yeah. Two things there. What you said about keeping knowledge, and Michael brought up the Inca. Everything. So the Inca, as far as we know, passed down their history orally, and everything that they have said about their oral history, all of our archaeological findings have validated that they passed down their oral history accurately. And this is something that's here in the Cherokee where I live. I mean, they talk about where they come from, and that they come from these snowy, cold mountains far, far away. And as we follow the archaeological evidence and the DNA evidence, that's exactly right. And that's long before the colonial history. A direct comparison I think that you could draw, Michael, Hell, this might even be a fun video to make. Shavin de Huantar in Peru, up in the Andes. It is a pilgrimage temple site made out of huge megalithic stones. It has 2 andesite, I think it's andesite, or maybe gray granite. I hope I'm right with there. But I think they're andesite monoliths that are there. One's called the Ramundi stone, if anybody wants to look this up. We call this a civilization, but it's really just a pilgrimage site where you don't really have evidence of habitation at Shavin de Huantar, and we don't have much evidence of habitation of these people at all. And in fact, there's so little of it that the last time I was studying this, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, they estimated that the civilization itself was maybe made up of like a few thousand people, but they fully on call it a civilization. And I think you could draw, and it existed sometime around 900 BC. I think you could draw a direct comparison between those two. And I think that they would probably both check everything off. However, Shavin is a civilization and Göbekli Tepe and the other contemporaneous cultures are not. So there may be something there for you to look into in the Americas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just think it's purely based on the date. As I said, like, I don't think there's any other reason why you wouldn't call. And I think, to be honest, I think it will change with time. I think in 30, 40 years, people are going to start saying like, yes, this is clearly a civilization. Civilization doesn't start with this hard line around 3000 BC. It's a lot more complex. Because I mean, that's just such a, it's just such like a binary idea that like nothing happened before this date. And it's based on kind of a worldview that we had like 50, 100 years ago, where it was like, this is the start of civilization. And we just kept the line in place, even though the evidence is like massively updated since then. So yeah, I don't buy into it. And on the kind of oral culture point, I mean, that's so powerful. I think cultures have always kind of transmuted knowledge through oral memory. I mean, you have the Aboriginal cultures in Australia who kind of memorize like geographic features and even encode scientific information into their myths effectively. And I think that's a really powerful thing that cultures have probably always used, and perhaps something we've lost. I think the kind of invention of agriculture in a way did lead to written language, because you had to that's kind of how it started, and it like kind of taking stock of your surplus and stuff like that. So that probably led to kind of widespread written language. But the idea that cultures or civilizations before then didn't have any way of passing down knowledge or, kind of keeping tabs on what was going on, it's silly. And there's just no way that's true. I think it's a very biased interpretation based on a limited model of history that we kind of view the world through.
Question for you, Michael. So if you think that the beginning of civilization didn't just start wham bam like 3000 BC, therefore would you say then it also doesn't have a cut-off line? If we move the goalpost back to include Göbekli Tepe, do you think that Göbekli Tepe is the start, or do you think that they are the end of a legacy civilization of before? Like, what do you think Göbekli Tepe is the 0 point, or do you think no? Okay.
I think it could go back a lot further. And again, it depends on how you define civilization and what we mean by civilization. But I think like quite sophisticated human culture and sedentary life is not a new thing. I think that could have been around for, 10s, 20s, 30s, even hundreds of thousands of years, to be honest with you. Because maybe not at a mass scale. I don't think there was like a massive civilization like a long time ago. But I think this idea of sophisticated human culture in a sedentary place flourishing, I just don't understand why that couldn't have happened until Göbekli Tepe or until ancient Sumer. That doesn't sit right with me. And I think the evidence even points in that direction, even in the slither of evidence we have from like 100,000 years ago, because we have hardly anything from that far back in time, like 100,000 years, 200,000 years. It's so hard for materials to survive that long. And we only have 9 Homo sapien sites, 9 sites from 100,000 years to 300,000 years. And there's a few others, non-Homo sapiens, but it's only like 20, 30 sites worldwide from beyond 100,000 years ago, which is a tiny, tiny little glimpse. It's a fraction. It's such a tiny slither of things to go off, because it's just hardly anything can survive that long. But even in that slither, we see signs of astonishing sophistication. We see things like Colombo Falls, as you referenced. It's like a very complex structure that has been planned, engineered, and built. And we see other examples. There's other examples of structures. There's Terra Amata. There's Bill Zingsleben in Germany. There's Terra Amatas in France. These are all evidence of structures built over 400,000 years ago. And it's just crazy to me.
Wow, I didn't know that in Germany.
Yeah, it's called Bill. Well, I think maybe it's slightly disputed if it's a structure, but I think a lot of archaeologists think it is a structure. It's kind of like a round circular foundation with a hearth in the middle. So it kind of looks like, obviously the wood hasn't survived, but it looks like the foundations of a structure, of a hut, basically. And there's a couple other examples.
Is it like where it's what survives is earthen, where it's like packed earth?
Yeah, and stones. Yeah, made into a kind of foundation.
Oh, okay.
Of a hut, but there's no. The hut doesn't exist anymore, but it looks like the kind of foundation of a hut. And so my point always has been that hardly anything survives from so long ago. Yet even in that tiny slither of what survives, we see signs of sedentary life. We see signs of astonishing sophistication. Why do we say that nothing happened? Why do we say that culture didn't flourish? Why do we say that humans were just exclusively nomadic, walking around in small bands and living in caves, when
almost even like animalistic kind of?
It's a silly point of view. It's an outdated point of view, and I really think it's going to change, and I hope it changes sooner rather than later, because then we can start, because we view history through this perspective, this lens that kind of blocks us off from seeing these things, because we don't think that anything was happening that was sophisticated back then. So we don't look for it. But once we start to kind of change our mindset and realize that humans were very sophisticated and have been for a long time, we need to change our perspective and kind of look for that kind of thing. Look for human culture, look for sedentary life. And then I think we'd probably have a bit of a shift in our understanding of human history.
Oh, I have a question. If you were given a massive budget to go and excavate one site in the world to like get down there, where would you invest the money? Like, where do you think is the burning place that we need to be digging, researching, pouring the money into?
I mean, it's a boring answer, but it would have to be Göbekli Tepe. I mean, maybe it would be ancient Egypt, to be fair, but
any particular site of Egypt's pretty big. Which
yeah, true. I mean, I think I don't know, because Egypt's already pretty well excavated and surveyed. Well, I guess it's not. Yeah, true.
Actually, I don't know. Like 10% or something. It's
insane. That's true. And then there's the whole Sahara Desert as well, which could, have crazy anything under that. But I think I would have to choose Göbekli Tepe just because it's the clearest example of like something really old that's clearly, megalithic building culture, civilization, whatever. So it's a boring answer, but I think that would be the one, because I always say, like, imagine if in the 90% of Göbekli Tepe that hasn't been excavated, imagine if we find something like a Rosetta Stone equivalent. I mean, obviously that would suggest they had a written script, but the Rosetta Stone was just one artifact that kind of changed everything regarding ancient Egypt and unlocked the whole civilization to be understood. Imagine if such a thing was hiding in the 95% that hasn't been excavated of Göbekli Tepe, or any of the 14 other sites in the Tashtapela culture. I always think, imagine if that was just found, and that would literally change history. So
aliens was here.
Yeah, something like
that. I would go under Hawara, and I would try and get to the labyrinth. That is like 100% under the Hawara pyramid. The recent scans that have come out, a couple of months ago, maybe 2-3 months ago, Louis de Cordier who was the guy who did the original Hawara scan. He got permission from the English company who did they do like satellite scanning, and he got permission to share it on his blog. I think you can find Louis de Cordier, Google his blog post, and you got all the scans on there. And yeah, really interesting stuff. It's super accurate measurements, and it's showing an insane many levels of this underground substructure. And what's interesting is obviously there's a water table around the whole site, which is because of the dam in Egypt. So it would cost literally so much money to like change the water dam structure to get out of the water table. But apparently only like the first layer or 2 layers of the substructure has water. The scans are saying that the bottom layers are water free. So we'd only have to like drain the top 2 layers to get through that, and then the other layers and like the massive atrium that's in the middle is water free. So whatever is down there, there's a high chance that it's preserved if there's any engravings or art or things or humans or whatever.
Humans.
There could be some humans down there, but I mean not alive, obviously. But and what the most interesting thing I think is there is a 40-meter tic-tac shaped thing that's down there that came up on the scan. And it's what was intriguing is they can tell what's down there. They can tell whether the walls are like granite or whatnot is coming up. But this tic-tac shaped 40-meter structure that's like in the center of this labyrinth, it's coming up as an unknown material on the scans. And they're like they don't, it could be metallic. They don't know what this material is. And if it's 40 meters, how did it must have been constructed down there, because how do you get something that's a 40-meter?
Yeah, for sure.
And what is it? And I don't know that. I mean, obviously we're getting into. Wait, I need to turn my hat around because we're getting into tinfoil. Look, is it aliens down there? But yeah, that I think that's like, if in my lifetime, if we could get down onto Hawara and find with eyeballs what that tic-tac shaped 40-meter structure is and what the substance is, then is
there any kind of plans to go under there at all, or is it just not even?
The problem is Ben from Uncharted X did a very, very long, like a good like hour and a half video on it. I did a very brief video on some of the scans a while ago. But the problem is because the Egyptian authorities, they built this dam, and the whole of the area around the Fayoum is majority of Egypt's agriculture. It's their farming area. So if in order to stop the water to do the dig, you'd have to redirect the water that goes to the agriculture, which they can't. So it's like, it's not as simple as just like pumping a load of water. It's like it's trying to redirect a dam of water. It's really complicated. It would cost like millions. They have looked into like exactly where the water is coming from. It's coming from also 3 directions as well. It's not just like one source. It's super complicated. And of course you've got the whole extra thing of like
Zahi.
What Zahi, and once they go down there and what they find, if it predates anything, it's going to knock the whole of the Egyptian story on its head, and then that's going to be potentially devastating for, you know, all of Egyptology. And so they just never would open that Pandora's box. I would. That's what
yeah, same.
I'll go down there. I'll take a snorkel and a spade and give it a go.
Is that labyrinth the I have not been keeping up with the labyrinth. I got to dive into it here soon. But is that the same thing that Herodotus was speaking about?
The very same one. So Herodotus visited, he didn't visit the underground section, he visited the above ground, and he was quoted as saying that it's beyond like human capacity, this thing that they've built. It's more impressive than the pyramids of Giza. Like the wonder that you get when you see the pyramids of Giza, it's like he said that you go down, there's like 3,000 rooms in the labyrinth, and they're created in a way that they spiral back on each other, so it's designed to get lost in, so you can't just map it out. It's really complex. It goes down multiple layers. There are like between each layer there are 100 steps.
Wow.
Which works out to be however many stories of a building. It's honestly huge. And what's insane is that like just very, very briefly, because the Hawara is my favorite. There's been like 3 kind of very independent scanning projects. So that was Louis de Cordier's 2008 Matterhorn scan expedition, which they did like kind of like radar, lidar scannings on the surface. Then there was a geoscan that was done, I think, both of these were done in 2015, separate companies. A geoscan using satellites, and then one from a British satellite scan company. And what's crazy is these independent companies their results align. So if anybody is going, oh, I don't really trust the results, well, you kind of have like a repeated concept here. They both found that there are significant granite floors to this thing underground at 20 meters, 40 meters, 60 meters, 80 meters, and 100 meters.
Wow.
And again, with this like huge atrium. And what's, again, if anyone's still going, I don't know if I trust the software, I don't even trust the thing. The British company who did this, the guy who runs it, not only do they have a CV of scanning, they find like submarines. They can locate submarines with these satellites, or they can locate water sources underground. Like they do this it's like a proper company. But this guy did Hawara, and he's ex-military, and he had a contact in the like British surveillance section of the military, and he said, could you, because they have big systems that can run satellite scans, he said, would you mind running my Hawara data through, because your system's obviously like way better. And they did it as a favor, and they were like, yeah. So it has been like the British military has accidentally, I don't know if they're going to get in trouble for this, but they have like confirmed. So all of the scans that you see on the blog post for Louis de Cordier, they're basically from the British military surveillance.
Wow.
Software. So it's kind of like as legit as you could possibly get, because people go, well, I'm not gonna believe it until like the government say. But I was like, well, the British military surveillance software says that this is what's under there, so I'm gonna take a stab and say there's stuff under there.
Yeah. I think so. Herodotus spoke about the Osiris shaft. People didn't think that it existed until Zahi himself by himself found it. So I'm sure that Herodotus is probably correct about that. But we definitely need to do a Hawara episode. Maybe we'll do that next.
Right, yeah.
But yeah. So Michael, what's what are some new frontiers for you? Things that you want to dive into in the future when it comes to, early prehistory? What are some frontiers that excite you that you plan to study?
I don't know really. I mean, I'm really bashing the drum of like human intelligence and talking about, because I mean, that's another thing I haven't even spoken about. Sorry, I'm going to go on for a tangent now, but like,
go for it, man.
We like the kind of the view has always been that humans, or maybe not everyone has agreed with this view, but it's been a very kind of mainstream view that humans didn't even get intelligent until 60,000 years ago in this cognitive revolution idea, which has been written about in so many books, and the most famous of them being Sapiens, which is like the best-selling book ever written about prehistory ever. And it's like an incredibly best-selling book, and it promoted this idea of the cognitive revolution and the fact that apparently humans only got smart 60,000 years ago. And I've been bashing that drum, saying like, that's just not true. There's so much evidence of serious sophistication way back beyond this so-called cognitive revolution. I mean, things like Colombo Falls, and so many things that I've been talking about in my videos, and we've mentioned here. Like, humans clearly have been smart for a long, long time, at the very least up to the beginning of our species, and I would argue possibly even in other species like Neanderthals and Heidelbergensis. Clear evidence of symbolic thought, clear evidence of advanced cognition and stuff like that. So that kind of angle I'm going to be bashing a lot, because I think that is still ingrained into like the public consciousness, that humans haven't been smart for very long, and that our other human cousins weren't smart, and they were kind of like dumb brutes. Like if you think of a Neanderthal, everyone thinks that it's just some dumb brute walking around with a club. So that kind of idea I'm gonna attack even more, because I think it's very widespread and very demonstrably false. Another thing I want to do is kind of get out there a bit more, as in out to like the actual sites, possibly. Not like because obviously the prehistory ones, that's a bit more difficult, because they're not really sites. I mean, they are sites. I guess I could, but I mean more places like Egypt and Göbekli Tepe, even South America one day, because that's a fucking long way for us in Britain. But one day
I'll take you, man.
I mean, I'd love that. Yeah. But that kind of thing, go into the sites, making content, stuff like that, because as most of my channel is just me in my room waffling to a camera, and while that's fun, like I'd like to get out there and use this kind of opportunity to kind of, touch grass, as the kids would say.
It will completely evolve your understanding of the ancient world. Just say you're talking about Egypt. I tell people this before they go on an Egypt tour. Everything you've learned about Egypt, you will learn so much more in just 2 weeks of being there. I mean, was that your experience, Johanna?
Yeah, I went to Egypt first in 2020. I went on my own like research trip because I got inspired by Jimmy and Randall and Graham on Joe Rogan, and I was like, I want to go and research like the origins of Atlantis. I was planning on writing like a movie script, and so I was like, I need to go there and like research. And I went to get answers to like research, and then I just left with my mind blown and so many questions. And so I was seeing all of the like weird artifacts and the out of place stuff and the holes and the mysteries and the drill marks and the saw marks, and I was just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, and every time I've gone back to Egypt as well, I've had a completely different experience. So I've gone to the same place at different times, and it's been wildly different. So you can keep going back.
Yeah. Johanna, maybe we should take Michael to Egypt.
We should 100%. It's
yeah, I love that. I mean, I've never been, and obviously it's like possibly the most mysterious place on earth in terms of ancient history. So I need to go at some point. I need to go to South America as well.
Egypt is, I'm totally enchanted by the Americas. But, the Egyptians, whether you're looking at, whether you're looking at it from like a prehistoric lens, and you separate the pyramids from the dynastic Egyptians and the things that may have been achieved by an older culture, but even going to like Karnak Temple. The dynastic Egyptians were magical people, and their entire approach to life was they were building everything for eternity. They were building structures that in a way like separated them from their mere mortal bodies. Like the Greeks exalted living people. When you look at their statues, these marble statues, it exalts this vibrant kind of like almost like the statues are breathing. But Egyptian statues have this eternal sort of feeling to them, and that's why Egypt feels so magical, because they are somehow in some way separating themselves and elevating beyond this world. And that was the whole purpose of their society. And I really we can go on and on. I'm not going to go on tangent here, but I think that when Herodotus was in Egypt, he talks about these cults of Amun at these Egyptian temples, and their mysterious practices that wouldn't be divulged to anybody. And then he becomes initiated in the cults, and then he can't talk about it in his writings. And so I really think that they were on something that so many other cultures I don't think tapped into. They were above the rest of the ancient world in some kind of mystical way, and that's why ancient Egypt is as iconic and as enchanting as it is, and that really nothing else comes close to it, in my opinion. As someone who loves the Americas, it's just Egypt is on a whole other level. So we really got to take you.
Yeah, mate, I need to go. I'd love to come. It's, as you say, it's incredibly enchanting and mysterious and just incredible. Like the construction, it's just, I don't really touch on ancient Egypt in my videos because I think there's so much stuff out there, but maybe I need to start doing that, because
once you go, I think once you go, it'll be good. I think once you go, you could start talking about it, because you'll have been there, and it adds like credibility. You have seen it. You know what it feels like to be there. Anyways, I don't mean to make this all about Egypt, but everything does come back to Egypt one way or another.
It all begins again with Egypt. Yeah.
So, Michael, I kind of asked you this a minute ago, but what are you working on right now? What can people expect from you in the future?
I'm just pumping out more videos, really, to be honest.
He's on it. He's on fire. I think you've won a record for like fastest on Rogan, I think, from beginning a channel. I'm gonna say that's your Guinness World Record.
Probably.
Possibly. I mean, yeah, it was pretty mind blowing. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, how is this happening?
Have you been name dropped on Rogan like loads of times? How many?
He has shouted me out a few times, yeah, which is
like 4 or 5 times probably.
Because I had a two-time shout out on Rogan record, and I was like, I think Michael's beaten my shout out record. Well done, sir. Well done.
You know what's crazy is Michael and I are probably somewhere in like, we're probably like 4th and 5th youngest people to ever be on JRE.
Amazing.
I think there's probably, I mean, Michael and I are literally 2 days different in age.
Yeah.
We are basically the same age.
Wait, were you born the same year?
Yeah. He was born literally 2 days after me. So what I'm saying is Michael and I are probably, I think I was the 4th youngest or the 5th.
Really?
I was the 3rd or 4th youngest. And so that would make you and I the 4th and 5th youngest people to ever go on Rogan.
Really? That's mad. I didn't actually think about that. That's crazy.
I wonder who's the oldest.
Oh my God, I don't know. John Anthony West, probably.
Probably John Anthony West. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. The other people, it was like some Olympian and then like an astronaut, and so we're up there, man.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it is nuts. Johanna, what about you? What do you have coming up?
Well, actually, I just had a meeting. My favorite Atlantis documentary that came out last year was called The Atlantis Puzzle. I just came across it, loved it, shouted it out. The director and the maker of the show, I got in contact with him, or he got in contact with me. I don't know. I had him on my channel. I interviewed him, and he, great guy, and was like, "Oh, would you like to be involved in like the next documentary?" And I was like, 100%. So we've just had like an initial meeting, talking about getting involved and shooting next year, so 2026, and that's going to be potentially in Egypt, so that's cool.
Super
because
cool.
The Atlantis Puzzle is, I think that's a really solid documentary, because it's coming at it purely from like a kind of Plato's text academic point of view. So because the guy doesn't believe in kind of Atlantis as in the way the Greeks described it. He's looking at it from the origin story, from an ancient African Neolithic culture, and the way that was then like retranslated by Plato and Greekified. But he's looking at the actual evidence for an ancient Neolithic African culture that were kind of like seafaring and super interesting. So that's the Atlantis Puzzle. I'm gonna shout it out again because I really like it. And so that's what potentially is my next thing that I've got in the diary, is to go and do that.
Cool. Any ideas for some new videos for the channel coming up?
No, I mean, at the minute I'm like still heavily in baby trenches, newborn trenches.
Totally get it.
Honestly, it's wild. I'm like, I'll just make a TikTok today, and then like the whole day's gone just because you're just doing bottle feed after nappy change, and it's wild. I mean, it might be too TMI, but just to show the realism today, my baby, I was changing her nappy today, and she pooed while I was doing that, and it exploded out, and it went on my face, and I got poo on my face. Like, I went into shock. I was like, I've got poo on my face. I don't think there's anyone in the world that I would, if anyone had to poo on my face, it was going to be my kid. But that's the reality of my day to day right now. So I'm not quite camera ready for doing more content. But when I get back,
too comfortable on this show.
I mean, there we are.
Should have just done the TikTok with the shit on your face.
I mean, can you imagine? Just in the trenches, guys.
Sorry, guys, I got to do it.
Ignore the shit on my face, but I've got to tell you about ancient Mesopotamia now. Someone just said better poo in the face than in the mouth. I know, thank God it wasn't in the mouth. That would have been a different situation.
That would have been scarring. All right, so we got a few comments here. All right, first up, Reuven. Hey, thank you so much for the big 2. Love all you Kais and girls.
Thank you, Kais.
Very much. Thank you very much, Reuven, for the 2 big euros. Okay, Watcha Toei. Luke, do any of your guests have information on who built Teotihuacan, Mexico? I've heard about the Toltecs, but I think there's missing info. Thanks. Yeah, we'll touch on this sometime in the future. But it's fascinating that we don't know the name of the people that built Teotihuacan, but we know quite a lot about the people who lived at Teotihuacan and the people of Mesoamerica whom they interacted with. So that might be an interesting thing. I think there's probably a lot of interest in Teotihuacan. Michael, are you familiar with Teotihuacan, the huge pyramids in Mexico? Pyramid of the Sun, the Moon, Quetzalcoatl. You ever heard of this before?
I've heard of it, but I can't say I know anything about it.
Yeah, so I get it, man. I get it. Yeah. So, well, someday I'll have to take you around the Americas. You'll find quite a lot interesting there. All right, sure. Sean Tiche or Tice. But there is evidence of meteor craters in the African continent near enough to have blown out all the developed sites, forcing dark ages for thousands of years. Yeah, and this could have happened throughout the last several 100,000 years. What do you think of that, Michael?
But is evidence of meteor craters in the African continent near enough to have blown out all of it? I think, yeah. But it depends when the meteor was hit, because lots of them are super, super old, aren't they? But I think the potential of kind of cosmic impacts to, wipe out both like the civilization as it exists, and also the evidence that the civilization or the culture or whatever ever existed is like a very real one. And like we're constantly being hit by cosmic impacts. Is kind of the question of how big are they and where do they hit, and are they big enough to kind of have that kind of impact? But I think once you again get up to the timescales of how long humans have been around, then it's just like simple maths that we've been hit at least multiple times by big impacts while we've been on the planet. And so why wouldn't that have had an effect? It would have had a dramatic effect on anyone alive at that time. And if it hit in the right place, it would completely wipe the kind of geological and archaeological record clean of their existence. So yeah, I don't know exactly about the kind of any specific meteor craters in Africa, but I think yes, yes is the answer to that question.
What was the name, if you guys remember, of that meteorite that they think burst just before it hit the ground in Siberia, like 110 years ago?
Oh, yeah, the Tunguska event.
Yeah. That thing, farmers that were hundreds of miles away said that it knocked over their cattle. Like the shock wave of that would knocked over all the cows.
Hundreds of square miles just flattened. So lucky that it was in like a woodland mountainous area of Siberia. If that had happened over a populated area,
if that happened over a city, millions dead.
New York City.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. That's crazy, isn't it? And something like that can just come out of nowhere. I know NASA and whoever else is monitoring the heavens thinks that they can track and anticipate these things, but I just feel like anything could happen. That's completely unanticipated.
They say that that's what happened at Sodom. So, Dr. Stephen
Sodom
Collins,
and Gomorrah,
yeah. He's excavating an area, I think in Jordan, and he's pretty confident that he's found what the ancient city of Sodom, and it was absolutely exploded by like an air burst event. And it would have happened instantaneously, and they found all the evidence they know, like the direction that the meteorite entered the atmosphere, because all the pottery is like exploded in one direction. Everything, there's like a layer of burnt, and he was like, it would have been exactly as like the biblical, it would have created the exact retelling for the biblical story, that like the city just instantaneously burst into flames and everybody would have been evaporated and eviscerated, and obviously people would go, God's angry at us, but much more likely that a meteorite just entered the atmosphere and exploded everything, and everybody got. And even to the point we're talking about like oral traditions, he said that this happened, they can date it to, can't remember the date, but something around like 500 BC. And they said that even today, like the oral name for that area in that place, it's got like bad voodoo juju vibes, and it's like it's known, it's got like a name that's, oh gosh, my baby brain's not working right now, but basically thousands of years later, even without people knowing why, the idea of that place being like deathly and like the valley of death and the place, it's like dangerous and don't go there, all in this ancient human memory of the fact that an airburst exploded.
That's
it would have like terrified everybody. Imagine.
Yeah. Okay, so Michael, this one is for you. Question. do you want to get into Sumerian grammar, how it relates to quantum physics?
Whoa. That's like super nerdy. I love it.
I put a thing out there for people to send in questions to you directly. So this one's definitely for you.
That was directly for me. I mean, I can't say I know anything about quantum physics or really anything about Sumerian grammar. So a question combining the both of them.
Homework.
Yeah, homework. I'll come back to you on that one.
Yeah. And then Johanna, this one's for you.
On the Nazca mummies. Oh, I keep swaying between because the fact that people can't categorically debunk them, like it's not as simple as going, we can categorically debunk what these are. The fact that there are teams of scientists coming in going, well, kind of humanish DNA. It's like what, you can't tell me that's was 100% fish or something. It's, it's interesting. I think that there's a chance that it could very much be an amalgamation of things, like about saying that they some of it's animal bones, some of it's human or whatnot. But then also I keep going back to the cone heads, and like 90% of the cone heads are man-made, imitating the very small amount of very real cone heads, because there's like a fetus with a cone head, and you can't manually shape a fetus's head from inside the belly. So there were humans that do not look like us in very recent history, cone heads. There's been weirder things than people having three fingers. So I'm not gonna like completely rule them out, but yeah, I keep flip-flopping on where I think.
An interesting video topic would be talking about how old the practice of skull elongation is. Like I wonder, is that something that's going on 20,000, 50,000 years ago? Do we have any evidence of that? I don't know.
It's 100% emulating something they've seen. It's like how Kim Kardashian wears something and suddenly everybody's trying to emulate their body in that way. Everyone's getting a big bum or whatever. And I think humans naturally do that. You find what you think aesthetically is, and then you just imitate it. And so obviously there was people that had the big, that shaped head, and people were going, I want to copy them for some reason.
And what's especially weird is that skull elongation is not an aesthetic decision that you can make for yourself. You cannot elongate your own skull. By the time you're old enough to be thinking about this, by the time you have the brain capacity to go, oh yeah, that's something that we need to model after. That's something that I want.
Don't crush my dreams, Luke. I was hoping to.
Yeah, you can't elongate your own skull. You can only do it to an infant or a child, right?
Wow.
So that's a weird thing, right? Like what is significant enough to spur you on to want to manipulate the skull of your children? That's something I have never actually seen a thorough explanation of.
Have you seen, are you guys too young? There was a movie in the 90s called The Coneheads. Does that go over both your heads?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I've never seen it.
Google the Conehead movie. Wait, what? Coneheads, 1993. Yeah.
It's before our time.
It was before your time. I happen to be quite old, so I remember it. But there we go. The Coneheads.
I don't know if it's gonna show up.
It was a fun comedy about cone-headed aliens who are trying to like immerse themselves in Earth culture. Yes, some people in the comments, thank you. I'm not the only person over 12.
Okay, all right, let's keep going. We got a couple more here. A mutual friend, Moundlore. He says, Mikey, in your view, when did humans truly become sentient in the modern sense, aware of themselves, mortality, and meaning, and when did it become self-reliant? And when did we become self-reliant as a species, in your view?
Self-reliant as a species. I'm not quite. What does that mean? I guess I can't ask them. In my view, when did humans become truly sentient? I think I see no reason why Homo sapiens couldn't have been truly sentient in the modern sense of aware of themselves and aware of their mortality, like way back when. I mean, we see, I mean, this, to be fair, this is controversial, but there's a site in Spain called Cima des Suezos or something. That's terrible. I can't actually remember what it's called. Where there's these, they think it's Heidelbergensis that have been placed into a pit deliberately, and so that kind of suggests some form of symbolic burial. Now it's contentious. They might have been like washed in there or something, but there's examples of, and there's the kind of there's like,
oh yes, the cave where it's like, did they bury them purposefully? And if
yeah,
they
well,
did,
there's also the
not different.
I've forgotten the name. I think what you're referring to is the Homo naledi ones.
Okay, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
well, that's the same point. Like, if we kind of have this these kind of spiritual burials, and Neanderthals did it over 100,000 years ago. So if we have this kind of conception of the afterlife and stuff like mortality like that way back then I don't see why we couldn't have been truly sentient for that long at least, and if not further. And the same can be said for kind of these signs of culture. Like, we have a site in Kenya called Ogeleseli, where they transported pigments from like 100 kilometers away. They selected these pigments and brought them back to then presumably use in some kind of ritual. Pigments are a spiritual thing to use, right? You don't paint your surroundings or yourself without kind of a spiritual conception of the world and that kind of thing. So I would argue that our species, Homo sapiens, have always been sentient. And then it's kind of like, how far back along the kind of human evolutionary journey do we take it? And obviously that's an impossible question to really answer, but I think it's been a long time. In terms of, I think that, sorry, I was kind of waffling on when Maunlaw kind of explained the self-reliant thing, but in terms of, well, I mean, we're still kind of reliant on nature, so I don't know if we ever kind of achieve that, because I mean, we still need nature in the world and to kind of get resources from the world around us. But maybe in terms of when did we kind of start living in huts, like building structures and stuff, I think, again, very, very, very old, as evidenced by some of the sites I've been mentioning. So I mean, my answer to everything is a long time ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago. I think humans have been much the same biologically and in terms of our intelligence for a long time. So that would be my answer. Bit of a shit answer, but
and I do wonder if sentience, maybe not to the same degree as Homo sapiens, but I would wonder if Neanderthals and humans, or I'm sorry, Homo sapiens share a common ancestor. Not that I know what the name. Maybe you know what the name of that ancestor.
Heidelbergensis, yeah. Homo
okay.
Heidelbergensis is supposed.
And so what I wonder is if we did an inherent sentience of some kind from that pre-Homo sapien species. Because you can see that Neanderthals have sentience. They understand, the Greek philosophers, they talk about the thing that differentiates humans from animals is that we are sentient, that we can remember the past and we use the past to perceive the future. And that's something that makes us almost like divine in a way. Well, you can see that Neanderthals, they have the same understanding because they have found those Neanderthals with leg injuries that had healed decades before, and that archaeologists or I guess paleoarchaeologists or whatever, maybe that's not right, but they interpret it as this Neanderthal was injured and that he was helped and assisted throughout the rest of his life and that people cared for him. So clearly we have this understanding here of like life and death and wanting to preserve the life of this person and helping them. So I think that we can see sentience not only in Homo sapiens, but also in the Neanderthals, which makes me wonder if that actually comes from our common ancestor.
I would argue, yeah. And I would argue it could possibly stretch back to Erectus, because we see the same kind of thing with Homo erectus finds. We see, ones that have been clearly in bad health but have survived for a long time.
Oh, really? Wow.
Group care and stuff like that. And Homo erectus, like, left engravings on stuff, which kind of suggests possibly they had symbolic intelligence and stuff like that. So I would argue it goes back a long time, which is mad.
Do you think that you would notice the difference of like a Neanderthal, like if you were in a club and there was a Neanderthal girl and a human, like, because they were having sex, or all of them, Denisovans, Neanderthals, humans, they must have either it was like a really weird fetish or they didn't notice or like we must have been so close.
I don't know. I mean, I think the kind of biggest like indicator was I don't think we really lived too much in harmony, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't know.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it would be like kind of opposing groups. Like, I don't think
he's a Neanderthal, honey. You cannot be with him.
Exactly, that kind of thing. But I mean, clearly we could communicate and clearly we could breed. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we were much more kind of intertwined than people think. I don't know.
My guess, and this is literally just a guess, but my intuition, the way I feel about it, is that we were probably incomparably more intelligent than our contemporary, human, other humans like Neanderthals and whatever else Homo sapiens were living alongside of, and I would guess that, like Homo sapiens tend to do, we absolutely went to war against these people and probably annihilated a lot of them. That would be my guess. That seems very Homo sapien of me. If Homo sapiens are similar now as they were 200,000 years ago, I would guess that we were not only vastly more intelligent, but we were probably vastly more violent as well. It may be as a direct result of our intelligence.
Or it could have been something as simple as just disease, like once we kind of migrated into an area with Neanderthals, pathogens could have just done like the European conquest of the Americas, like a similar kind of thing. But I mean,
the pathogens form from civilization, like the bubonic plague. People think that that's in Europe. That didn't come from Europe. That came from the Nile thousands of years before. And what happened was you had these sedentary settlements that were on the riverside. And so you had rats and you had all these rodents that are living amongst people, and these diseases start festing. And then I think it's in the Middle Kingdom that these medical papyri start coming out of what they call the bubonic plague. And that actually spread out from Africa. And over the course of thousands of years, it gets up into Europe. And so, it could be that Homo sapiens to some degree are sedentary, and that that starts breeding disease that these other, contemporaries to Homo sapiens are not prepared for. So here we got it.
I'm gonna just
go ahead.
1 moment. Just gonna get my baby. Hold on.
Okay, no worries. So, anyways, I agree with you. I think that I don't really know what the theories are for why the other contemporary or contemporaneous species were wiped out, but I'm gonna guess it had something to do with us. I would think.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, just knowing how we treat other Homo sapiens, we could probably do even worse to non-Homo sapien humans.
Yeah. How much evidence, if is there with like war amongst Neanderthals? Like were they or even the I guess I don't really know the discrepancies between Denisovans and Homo sapiens, but how much evidence do we see of violence among those contemporaries?
Denisovans or Denisovans, we have basically no evidence of them. Like we have like the odd fragment of a jawbone here and a molar here and like a little bit of whatever. We don't really, there's hardly anything. We don't even have a full complete skeleton. We don't really know what they are. Neanderthals, I think there's quite a lot of evidence of them being pretty brutal to each other. But I mean, it's the same as us. Like we did this, we're still brutal to each other now. Like I don't think they were any more or less brutal to each other or warring than we are. I think they were remarkably similar to us, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I feel like no one really knows. There's lots of kind of debate out there about who they were and what they were like and how different they were from us.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I don't know, to be honest. But I saw North 02 did a good thing about kind of Neanderthal violence.
I did. So I haven't watched that video yet. Have you talked to him much?
No, but you should watch that video because that has the answer that I do not have. But he's great.
We have another Leo here. Who is that you're holding, Johanna?
This is Atlas, the newest member of the team.
Woo.
You want to join in the podcast, didn't you? That's what was going on. So, oh, she got the hiccups.
That baby has a thick head of hair.
I know. She got a lot of hair.
I know. That's awesome.
Came out like that. Mad.
Yeah. All right. So just a few more. We have another mutual friend, but this time between Johanna and I. Chuck says, let's get Göbekli Tepe fully excavated. Need some bright insights on the 95% not uncovered. Yeah,
100%.
totally agree. All right. And then not salmon fish. Thank you for the big 5 USD. Hyphens as force carriers, space as bent space-time, phonetics as gravity wave, but space is actually matter. There's no void. Mass is on the edge between. Michael, I'm going to let you take this.
That's your one, Luke. I've already answered the question. Yeah, no comment.
Atlas, what do you think of this?
Yeah, this was Atlas's one.
I think this is for you, babe. So space as bent time space. Imagine if she knew, but just didn't have the capacity to tell us yet. Oh my gosh, this is feeling like a question that you get in like your exams, and you're like, I don't know.
Well, we'll try to get back to you on that one. Thank you.
Sorry, Sam. It's just a bit higher above our pay grade at the moment.
All right, Sedona Connections. Thank you for the big 10 USD. See you in Scottsdale, Michael. Good on the next generation for exploring our origins. Very cool. Okay. So this is the Sedona event. Very cool. Yeah, are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, man, it's gonna be good. Yeah, in December, flying out there, so should be fun. I will see you there, Sedona Connections. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Are you? So I'm guessing you're doing a whole presentation lecture.
I'm doing a talk, yeah, but I haven't prepared it yet. So we'll probably do that at some point. But
any idea what it'll be over?
I think it'll probably be on this kind of human intelligence question, because that's the thing I keep banging on about. So I might as well bang on about it a bit more in person. So yeah, I think it'll be on that human intelligence. How far back does it go? Yeah. So I look forward to that, but I haven't prepared it yet. So, but we'll see.
Awesome. Super cool. Well, hey, Michael, man, it's been great having you on the show and getting to know you over the last few months. I think you have a very bright future in this prehistory, early human origins space. It's a wildly popular topic, and you do a great job of kind of packing it into a 10 to 15 minute video and packaging things in a very digestible way. And I expect your channel to keep rolling right along, man. You're doing great. Next step is going to be getting out and seeing a lot of these places in person. For sure.
And thank you, Luke. Thank you, Johanna. This is an honor to come on your show. I've known about you two for a lot longer than you've known about me, so it's a crazy time. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've had great fun. I hope.
I found you from I think it was your Malta video.
You did. You shouted me out early on. I appreciated that.
Thank you. Like, oh my god, this is so cool. Yeah, because Malta's on my list. I've been to Malta, but I've not been to the site. So I definitely want to get out there and check out the sites ASAP. But
yeah,
that was
awesome. Yeah, you should go. It's cool. That's like one of the few places I actually have been. So that's holding a lot of weight on my going to places. But yeah, thanks guys. It's been great. Lovely to meet you both, at least face to face, and Atlas as well.
Really quickly, Michael, do you have any interest in East Africa? Would you ever travel out there, like to Tanzania or Kenya or something like that?
I mean, I don't know anything about it in terms of or in any respect, but not in a history respect, definitely. But I mean, yeah.
There are some that I've seen. This is just me kind of diving into it recently because I've been studying some stuff on colonial Africa, and mixed in with that is some of the archaeology of Africa. And they've found skeletons of humans and other I guess hominids out in East Africa on the Serengeti. And there's some archaeological sites you can visit, like you can visit the general area of it and see it, right? And I have been thinking about working with some kind of tour company out there to go see East Africa. There's some stuff I want to see there that has to do with colonial history. And while I was there, I was thinking about seeing some prehistoric sites. And I was thinking, you're a lot closer to East Africa than I am. So maybe we meet up out there or something.
Yeah, for sure, mate. I mean, I'm not exactly close to East Africa.
Yeah,
but you're a lot closer than I am.
African, mate.
Yeah. It's just up across to East Africa. But yeah, I mean, that would be awesome. And yeah, I mean, there's lots of that's the supposed cradle of humankind. So there's lots of prehistory there for sure.
Yeah. Australia would be a cool one. Maybe that's something we should do.
That's even further, bro.
So far away.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we're probably both equally as far from Australia, I would guess.
Probably, yeah.
Have you guys ever looked into like the discovery of the second New World, like that chapter of history where the British, kind of discover Australia and Tasmania and New Zealand and all of the wild history during that period? Have you all ever dived into this?
No.
We'll have to talk about it sometime. It's quite fascinating. Anyways, Michael, man, it's been great. Thank you so much for coming on Raiders of the Past podcast. We still do not have an outro. And,
we don't. But just to end on this, just to make sure everybody's aware, because we did launch our merch. So I'm going to just shout it out one more time. Ooh. Because you're sporting the t-shirt, I'm sporting the hoodie, and we've got various hats available.
Get it?
So you can just, it's on your channel or my channel's like description. You can click through to our fourth wall.
Yes, get yourself some Raiders University merch. It is super nice, super comfortable. We sourced the best companies to work with the best materials, and it's pretty nice stuff.
It's really, really good quality, and I get loads of compliments on it.
Yeah.
And shout out to your mom for helping us, because she really helped us a lot, like making sure everything.
My mom is going to be so happy that you just gave her a shout out. Yeah, she's going to be so happy of that. So anyways, hey, thank all you guys for tuning in. This has been Raiders of the Past podcast episode. I don't know what, but thanks again, Michael, for coming on, man. We will definitely do this again some point in the near future.
Thank you both. It was an honor. Bye, everybody.